Stoicism is an ancient Greek and Roman philosophy. Millions of people, both ancient and present, have found it practical and powerful. I would include myself as one of these people. Even so, despite this recent growth and popularity, it's not often acknowledged just how transformative it is. When one makes a claim like that, we always have to say what Stoicism is. I think there are three main ideas in Stoicism. The first is a simple one. How you think about the world shapes how you experience it. The Stoic and Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Consider that everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power. Take away, then, when you choose, your opinion, and like a mariner who has doubled the promontory, you will find calm, everything stable in a waveless bay." That emotions are downstream of our thoughts has been known for centuries, and it also finds support in contemporary work. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett writes, "You are an architect of these experiences. Your river of feelings might feel like it's flowing over you, but actually, you are the river's source." The second idea is simple too. We can change how we think. We're not ruled by unconscious drives. Instead, we are the control center. We can choose to respond or react to every thought. Those decisions shape who we are over time. That's a message of hope, but also one of responsibility. The third idea is ethical. Good decisions and judgment are what fundamentally matters. This is an ethical idea in the ancient sense. Here, ethics refers to a view on how to live well, not merely a statement about rules we ought to follow. If we are fundamentally reasoning and social beings, then our purpose is to fulfill that role to the best of our abilities. This means building the character to make excellent decisions and pursue knowledge. Everything else is just not as important. It's useful to see everything else as conditionally good. Power is only good if it doesn't corrupt. Pleasure is only good if it is caused by a good thing. And status should only be satisfying if it is deserved. Good character is unconditionally good. One cannot ask any more of fellow human beings other than that they build the character to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. Stoicism offers a path to that kind of life. It's a philosophy for people like us, decision makers in the broadest sense. But what makes a good decision? The ancient answer to this is that decisions should be guided by the knowledge of our nature. We are essentially rational and social beings. Our purpose is to fulfill this reasoning and pro-social nature. Today, however, it's difficult to say whether things have non-derivative functions. In ancient times, this was a common view. The distinction here is that a hammer has a derivative function. It has a function we give it. It's a tool for fixing things, of course. And the ancient view is that human beings also have a function. We have a purpose in the same way that a hammer does. But is this really so? A common view is that our nature is just given by evolution, but this is a mistake. Suppose you say that the purpose of biological life is to survive and reproduce. But just because we've evolved in a certain way doesn't say anything about our essential purpose. Teleology or purpose plays a merely metaphorical role in evolution. Nature hides her ends, and so ours is hidden as well. Perhaps there's a religious meaning or religious grounding behind things. That possibility should not be eliminated, but it cannot be confidently endorsed. The fact of the matter is that this issue, this question of our nature, is abstract and uncertain. I don't know whether we have some essential nature or purpose. I'm not that wise. In fact, sometimes I suspect that the very idea of essential natures is misguided. But we should not insist on understanding here. Happily, we can know something without understanding its fundamental nature. It's possible to understand the traits of a good poker player without fully understanding the math that grounds the optimal play. It's possible to predict the movement of a ball without understanding the laws of physics that cause it to move as it does. So perhaps it's enough to say that we are social and rational beings. Like many animals, we must live with others. We do not live alone. We must play a role in the human cybernetic hive. I've always liked the phrase, what's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. Unlike the bee, we are rational. Such a trait contains within it the quest for knowledge. The virtuous person is honest, resourceful, kind, respectful, thoughtful, courageous. These are all ordinary and common sense traits. Confucius has this line, "Is goodness really so far away? If I simply desire goodness, I will find that it is already here." Life is a timed game to become a good person. The Aristotelians held that virtue was not enough for living a good life. The Stoics disagreed. They believed that it was sufficient. It was enough. I think the Stoics are correct here. If the idea of a good life is action relevant for each of us, it should be attainable. What's not attainable just isn't important. Because the Aristotelian sense of happiness involves things that are out of our control and hence not necessarily important, it just isn't as relevant to who we ought to be. Virtue is all that we have control over, and happily that's enough. Others argue against the Stoic view, these ancient views about virtue, saying that we must sacrifice virtue for some greater good. But the resort to trade-offs, I think, is too often used as an excuse and indicates a lack of resourcefulness. A common thought experiment someone may give is that there's going to be a nuclear war unless you torture an innocent person. Do you do it? In any realistic scenario of this sort, I suspect one either could find a way to prevent nuclear war without torturing the innocent person or simply shouldn't do it. The deeper philosophical issue with this view is that we shouldn't sacrifice virtues for speculative outcomes. Every historical case of wrong for the sake of greater good, whether radical environmentalism, communism, fascism, or long-termism, has involved certain wrong for the sake of speculative greater goods. In each case, it's obvious that one should have stuck with the idea, do no wrong, don't bet on these hopes for some communist or fascist utopia or whatever. We can think of good character in a way then as the safe and reliable investment. The greater good is a speculative one, and we shouldn't speculate until our safe investments are made. Likewise, to finish the analogy, one shouldn't aim to maximize expected value at the expense of virtuous. The substantive philosophical argument here is that maximizing expected value eventually leads to ruin. And that's ultimately the Stoic view. A focus on virtue, the idea that how we think about the world shapes how we experience it, and the claim decisions and thoughts, reflective thoughts, are ultimately up to us. Of course, Stoicism is not a philosophy I've realized in my life fully. The Roman philosopher and political advisor Seneca used the analogy of a hospital. Most of us are philosophizing as patients. None of us are healed. Each of us are sick. Let's end with a thought from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered. But those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Remember then that if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, and that which belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered. You will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault with gods and men. But if you suppose that only to be your own which is your own, and that which belongs to others, such as it really is, then no one will ever compel you or restrain you. Further, you will find fault with no one or accuse no one. You will do nothing against your will. No one will hurt you, you will have no enemies, and you will not be harmed.